that we've had a public comment period. And the input that we get from the public is extremely important. Right now, we have made no decisions. We have 4 alternatives. They're very broad. The range of alternatives really goes from soup to nuts on using the existing management that we have right now, to having an alternative that looks more at conservation, an alternative that looks at more development, and then a kind of a middle-of-the-road alternative. But they're very, very broad. And so we're depending upon the public, as well as our cooperating agencies, to let us know if there are errors in the document, if there are omissions, something that we should have considered but it's not in there, and what is the perspective of the community for the different actions that we're proposing or that are in the document. So a role of cooperating agencies. The city of Mesquite is a cooperating agency. They have been, you all have been involved in helping us to create the range of alternatives. You've been involved in writing portions of the document, reviewing it, bringing your input back to us, reviewing it before it got released to the public, and now we're in the public comment period for the draft. And so your input, you have specialized expertise, you know your city, you know what you need, and so your input is extremely important. I think we are up to about 21 cooperating agencies right now that have been helping us to develop this plan. So that's kind of a thumbnail of where we are right now. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Lee Kirk, and he's going to walk you through the plan, and we would be very happy to answer any questions.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
You made the statement that the city's...
You made the statement the city's been involved in this plan?
Yes, sir.
We have? I'd like to know at what level. I mean, if somebody can educate me on that, I would like to know. I mean, what you said, my understanding was you said we gave input on this plan before it was published and all that?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
When, who?
Yeah, where did you get the information, who, from, when? I mean, I'm just curious because I didn't see it.
We had a meeting, it's been a while back, but we've had a meeting with the mayor, the city planner, your administrative staff here. We had a meeting about the range of alternatives, and we've had 2 cooperating agency meetings where all the cooperators are invited.
Well, my understanding was those meetings didn't take place till probably 30 days ago, if those are the meetings you're referring to. I need some clarification, is all I'm asking for. That's
We
the
can
reason I'm asking
provide
the
you the
question.
dates that we met.
And who you met with and when?
Sure, absolutely. We can
But
do
my
that.
understanding was you said that those meetings took place before this plan was put out to the public.
Correct. Okay, so I'd like to right now turn it over to Lee Kirk. Thank you.
And thank you. The presentation I'm going to be providing is the same one we provided at our public meetings, it's just slightly tweaked. So,
Lee, that does go up.
okay.
It wasn't hanged.
You need your name.
Lee Kirk, I'm the project manager for the resource management plan. The purpose of this presentation is to introduce you to the Las Vegas and Pahrump Field Office's draft resource management plan and environmental impact statement, and provide direction on how best to participate in the public review process. Thank you for inviting the BLM to present this information and your interest in BLM managed public lands and the many things that make them such a great multi-use public resource. First, let me explain what a resource management plan, or RMP, is. The RMP is a plan for managing BLM managed public lands and will guide BLM decisions for the next 15 to 20 years. BLM is completing the plan in compliance with the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, in which Congress directed the BLM to manage public lands for a variety of uses. Direction in the plan must also comply with a variety of other federal laws, such as the National Environmental Policy Act, Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act, Clean Water Act, Taylor Grazing Act, as well as the more recently passed Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. The RMP seeks to manage for a full range of uses of public lands, from recreation to energy development, wildlife habitats, protection of important cultural and ecological resources, in addition to mineral development and grazing. There are many resources that make up the BLM managed public lands and many ways to use those resources. The RMP is an effort to manage those many resources and uses in a sustainable way. The RMP process started 5 years ago. In 2010, BLM hosted a series of public meetings throughout Southern Nevada for the public to identify the resources, uses, and management concerns they had. At that time, 263 people provided more than 500 comments about the management of BLM managed public lands in Southern Nevada. These comments form the basis of this RMP revision process for the Las Vegas and Front Field offices. Since that time, BLM has taken that input and worked closely with local, state, and federal agencies to develop a plan that can meet legal demands, resource needs, and social challenges that go with management of so many resources. The result of that coordinated effort is the draft resource management plan. BLM started this process with input from the public, and it is your turn once again to help. We need your help to review the draft RMP and let us know how to make it better. To do that, let's walk through the document and talk about the best way to submit your comments, thoughts, and suggestions about the draft RMP. It is important to note at this time, nothing has been decided, nothing is final. This is a draft, and it is our desire with your help to improve the plan before it becomes final. The plan addresses BLM managed public lands in Southern Nye and Clark counties. On this map, those show up in yellow. The purpose of the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, is to disclose the environmental impacts that would be anticipated by implementing the decisions in the RMP. A requirement of NEPA is that BLM prepare a reasonable range of alternatives for resource management and then review the anticipated impacts. By comparing the alternatives, when BLM moves from the draft plan to the final plan, that decision can be based on an accurate understanding of the environmental consequences. The organization of the EIS allows for the side-by-side comparison of potential plan decisions in Chapter 2, as well as a comparison of anticipated impacts or environmental consequences in Chapter 4. Chapter 3 provides a baseline description of the various resources managed by BLM and forms the base for identifying environmental impacts. Chapter 5 describes what agencies, organizations, and tribes have been consulting in the planning process. Let's explore what the plan looks like. We will focus on Chapters 2 and 4. This page is out of Chapter 2, or Alternatives. This page addresses a variety of ways BLM could manage visual resources. As you can see, there are 4 different ways of looking at visual resource management because it is influenced by other resource decisions in each alternative. For example, in Alternative 2, which explores the maximum preservation of natural resources, 472,574 acres of land would be managed as BRM1, or to preserve the most natural settings. Alternative 4, which explores maximum development and utilization of the land, identifies 230,372 acres of land with BRM1. The reader is directed to the maps to compare where those kinds of decisions would apply. The main point is, wherever possible, there are 4 different alternatives for every plan decision. These alternatives provide a reasonable range of perspectives while still meeting the legal demands BLM is under to manage public lands. Chapter 4 shows the impacts that can be anticipated from each management decision. In the case of visual resources, Chapter 4 will identify how OHV use might impact visual resources or development of renewable energy, or even how wildfires are managed. All could impact the visual setting, and the impacts flow in both directions as well. How do the visual resource decisions impact other uses of the land? Will it support or decrease the amount of solar and wind energy development? Will impact where potential utility corridors are placed? Will it influence how recreation opportunities are pursued? Chapter 4 works to identify what those impacts are and how resource management decisions impact a variety of resources throughout the field offices. provide the most constructive comments, the following steps will really help in focusing your thoughts and suggestions to the areas you have most interest. First, identify the topic you want to address. Next, read the executive summary and see how that topic is addressed in the overall approach of the plan. Then focus on one topic at a time. Find the maps that address that topic. Review the background information for the resource or topic in Chapter 3. Turn to Chapter 2 to see different alternative ways of addressing the issue in the plan. And then explore the description of impacts that could result from the planning decisions outlined in Chapter 4. Do what you can to make comments effective. If you don't agree with the analysis that identifies the anticipated impacts, point out where it is incorrect or inaccurate. And better yet, offer some suggestions for analysis that isn't considered. An effective comment will reasonably question the approach, methods, or assumptions used in the analysis. An effective comment will present new information that will alter, change, and most importantly, improve the analysis. And an effective comment will suggest a reasonable alternative other than those analyzed in the RMP. If there is a better way of looking at the resource challenge that BLM did not consider, please share it. In this way, effective comments can contribute to positive changes and revision of the alternatives, and ultimately into the plan that will eventually be adopted. Again, to make the most effective comments, be specific as possible. Clearly identify by page number, section, and map number where you feel there is an error, or that BLM has incorrectly addressed the issue, or how the decision could be better framed. Provide constructive solutions, and if you can, supportive information for your recommendation. Let BLM know your experience that may be helpful in better understanding the issues or resource decision. Simply put, the more specific your comments can address the specific things in the draft RMP, the more useful those comments will be. There are several ways to provide your comments about the RMP. Comments may be submitted via email, fax, letter, comment forms, and through the project website. Comments are due by March 9th, 2015. We will then review and incorporate comments and release the final plan about a year later. The BLM looks forward to receiving your comments on ways the draft RMP can be improved, and more than that, improved management of public lands. Once again, thank you.
Let me just make a brief comment, try to answer before we open up anything for discussion. Councilman Haven had a question about meetings and so forth and so on, and let me clarify it as best I recall. My meeting, I believe, took place about 2 months ago. Mr. Barton, you were at the meeting, I believe. Am I about right, 2 months?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Yeah, time flies, you never know what's going on. And I believe Mr. Seacrest, Mr. Barton, myself, and Aaron Baker were at the meeting. And I will say that the meeting consisted of a brief introduction and a quick picture of the plan with the possible alternatives shown here today. I'll also comment that I have not read this plan, just a brief overview. I believe there's over 2,000 pages in the, am I correct, about 2,000 pages in this? Okay. And to further answer the question, I'm not privy to any meetings that were held before I became mayor last May. So I'm not too sure what transpired and with who. You may want to clarify some of that up as we go along. And I also might comment that looking at the March 9th date, that's right around the corner. That's just a couple days. And I'm not sure how many people have had an opportunity to see this plan prior to today. I think if I was to ask the audience, the numbers would be very, very small indeed. I know it is available, but I'm not too sure in conversation with the number of people that they even were aware of this plan. Mr. Seacrest.
Just in trying to answer Mr. Haytham's question also, I know a little over a year ago, members of my staff attended some meetings at the BLM office in Las Vegas as representatives of Mesquite to give input, I suppose, on some of the topical areas that were going to be addressed in the draft. We submitted or gave our opinions at that time and comments, much of similar to what the comments that I've provided to council members today. But so that's been our involvement up to this point.
So I guess at this time, procedure is we can open this up to public comment. As I commented at the last council meeting, try to remember that this is not about issues that are not part of this plan directly. It is really nothing to do with the situation out at Gold Butte with Mr. Bundy and his cattle, nor does it have anything to do with outside issues with BLM. This is directly related to a long-range plan that BLM is proposing. I would, however, before we start, ask that the BLM consider changing the date of March 9th, extending it out, or trying to find a way to get this extended out so more people could get involved in the commenting, and then to explain the process that somebody has to go about to actually submit a comment so they know how to wend their way through whatever they have to do. Would you care to do that first, as far as?
We do have a project website, and I do have some handouts up here for anyone who wants to grab. I also have some DVDs of the actual document, but everything in here will tell you kind of what the document's about, how, again, kind of my presentation, how to look through the document and provide comments. So we do have a project website, and it's on here, all that information, how to make a comment, how to make constructive or effective comments are all in this little packet here, and it's also on the project website. So all the information we had at the public meetings are on the project website, so that's all available for the public. So, and my business card's up here. I'm available at any time someone wants to call me. I can help guide you through the document the best I can. I know it is big, but if you take pieces of it, I can help you and direct you what pages you need to look at, depending on your interest. So until March 9th, I'm still available. Even after that, if you have questions, I'm still available. So.
Any questions from council before I open this up for discussion? Councilman Withhelder.
Thank you, Your Honor. Speaking, I'm sorry, ma'am, I forgot your name.
Gail Marsh-Smith.
Thank you. You mentioned that this has been available for 150 days approximately, this plan. Does that 150th day coincide with March 9th?
Yes, it does.
Is there a reasonable chance to get that somewhat extended so that we can further pursue this?
Any extensions would have to be approved by the state director, so I could certainly take your request to Amy Luters, who's the state director, and probably our BLM director as well. So it wouldn't, that decision wouldn't be made at my level or even at the district level, but I can take your request.
Thank you. That's something that I think we would consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Delaney.
I would just like to ask, were any of those public meetings or public hearings held here in Mesquite? And if not, why not?
We had 5 public meetings scheduled. They were Laughlin, Henderson, Las Vegas, Amargosa Valley, Pahrump, and the Pahrump one was not done. We have offered, we haven't done one in Mesquite, and that's true. We offered through Commissioner Collins to do a meeting over in Moapa Valley. That one, we didn't do that one. We got kind of crosswise with our schedule, and that one wasn't rescheduled. But we have had separate meetings with various stakeholders, Moapa Valley Water District, Overton Power. We had an individual meeting with them. We've had meetings with the OHV stakeholders through Commissioner Collins. And Commissioner Collins has been very helpful in helping us do some of the outreach with the community and the group. But you're correct, we have not had a meeting here at Mesquite.
Well, I just think that since Mesquite is going to be greatly affected by this plan, and not only the public officials' input would be important, but also the public's. So I don't know how you want to address that or look to the future on that, but I really think that the input from the public is important.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Councilman Robson.
Yeah, I appreciate I hope you appreciate the spirit with which this deadline is, as often happens, until there's a deadline and you're approaching it, the imperative is not there. And I think now the people who have an interest, which clearly are people who do, understand the impact of a looming deadline. And now the troops are rallied on both sides to find out what's going on here. So I would suggest, if you can, anything you can do to extend this, whether it be whatever, a week, a month, whatever, would be helpful. And I'm inclined to believe, I don't know for a fact, but if Mayor Littman has not met with, and I don't believe that Mayor Weir did, I don't know that, but I'm not pretty sure he didn't. Andy could probably help me, he would have been there, or Richard. But my guess is that those meetings happened probably at least 4 years ago with the prior administration, and different people that have changed and perhaps some different comments or attitudes. So I think this would be very helpful to extend this out if it's at all possible. I hope you can at least see the urgency in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to open it up to the public momentarily. I might comment that last time I had said that there were, I believe there are 4 alternatives, correct?
That's
With
correct.
9 possible items per alternative.
9 programs.
And I had misspoken and thought there were 36 total that way, but I'm not a mathematician. In speaking with Mr. Barron, he tells me there were over 6,000 possible combinations. And we start putting all that together. Am I correct on that, sir? Over 6,000 possible mathematical combinations with those numbers. And that's what I think makes this so complicated for most people to grasp, let alone be able to grasp it and have it ready next week as far as comments go, at least constructive comments. It's easy to make lots of comments, but they're not always constructive. And I prefer constructive comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I am going to open this up to the public. Our decorum here is quite simple. If you haven't been here before, you clearly state your name, you have 3 minutes, and it's basically first up to the podium speaks first. And Barbara Elstad, I think, is going to
Hi. My name is Barbara Elstad. I please want to make sure everyone understands I'm speaking as a private citizen of Mesquite and not in any official capacity with the Virgin Valley Water District Board of Directors. So please understand I'm speaking as a private citizen. I want to read an excerpt from the Moapa Valley Progress, February 11, 2015 article, deadline extension for RMP, a victory for local groups. Janice Redondo, Commissioner Collins' rural coordinator, said that in direct response to a January 14 Moapa Valley Town Advisory Board meeting where several utility company representatives expressed concerns, she was able to set up a meeting between BLM Representative Tim Smith and local utility company representatives that was super beneficial. It was a great meeting, she said. We put utility companies in direct contact with Lee Kirk, and I believe that's you, sir, of the BLM. He really knows the intricacies of all the alternatives. And here's what scares me the most. Redondo said that the BLM admitted to a flaw of sorts in overlooking utility functions. We were able to uncover something that the BLM will fix going forward, she said. So my concern is that the Virgin Valley Water District has not had an opportunity, if I'm not mistaken, as a utility company, to sit down and visit this issue with you and all of the ramifications in the RMP that may affect the Virgin Valley Water District, specifically the 2,300 acre feet of water we have water rights to documented with the state engineer in the Virgin Valley Mountains. So I am extremely concerned about that. And I would like to see not just talk, I would like to see something in writing that assures this RMP is going to forever give us access, not just to the water rights, but the ability to build, maintain water machinations to get that water out of the mountains and down here. Not in the next 5 years, in the next 20 years. which you indicated your plan is going to run through. So I'm extremely concerned about that. Thank you.
My name is Dwayne McGinn. I do live in Bunkerville. BLM would not come to Bunkerville to address our town board, so I would like to make some comments here if that's okay. We did, as a town board, request with Commissioner Tom Collins to set a meeting up with the BLM early in January because the first expiration of this public comment period was January 9th. It took them over 6 years to draft this, and we asked for considerable additional time. My personal preference was 5 years. However, I don't know what Commissioner Collins requested. I believe it was 1 year. We got 60 days. I find that interesting. I find it also interesting that we're at March 3rd and this closes in 6 days and finally coming to the city of Mesquite. I find that interesting. I also found it interesting on the slideshow that it said that in 2010, when they started this process, the 263 people out of more than 2 million plus in Clark County had comments, with 500 comments. That's a pretty small amount of people, wouldn't you think, to consider addressing what all of us have to live with and deal with. They mentioned the Taylor Grazing Act. I believe in this, that's completely eliminated. I may be wrong. As they talked about visual impacts, last time I was out in Gold Butte proper, if you will, there was a 2-wire fence that was constructed 7 or 8 years ago along the main road out there. And I asked them about that, and that was put up because BLM themselves had driven out on the desert and created tracks, and so they fenced miles with very unsightly 2-wire fence. It was supposed to have been up for 2 years, and I'm not sure, but maybe Gail can tell me exactly how many years that's been up and when it's going to be taken down, because we addressed it as a town board in Bunkerville. It's still there. And I was also interested in the 21 entities involved in this, and that the Mesquite City Council is not involved, the Virgin Valley Water District isn't involved, the Bunkerville Town Board isn't involved. Guys, it looks to me like this is a slam dunk, open and shut program, and I would encourage each of you to request a long additional comment period for this, because it has so much to do and affect each one of us. Thank you.
Mike McRae. I'm a resident of Mesquite, been here for 9 years. I retired from Interior, so I understand what you're doing here. I have read the plan. I think that if people take a look at the stakeholder comments, a lot of the concerns that have been raised here have been addressed in the stakeholder comments. Just one as an example, they point out that there's a number of people who, of course, would like the state to take over much of the BLM property. But they also point out that there are other residents who feel that the BLM is doing a good job. So the point is that there's a lot of stakeholder issues that have been addressed. I think you should read them. I do have a couple of questions. I'll submit some others in writing to you. But I think it would be important to spell out what the differences might be between the National Conservation Area and the existing ACECs, especially as it relates to Gold Butte. I'm not sure that there's really that significant of a difference between going from a national conservation area and its current standing, but I think it should be pointed out. Secondarily, I think there's some tables that should be updated in terms of the current census. I think it would give you a better idea of what the rural communities look like. Other than that, I'll be glad to send you these comments.
Bob Bunker. I grew up here in the valley and spent a lot of time out in the mountains. I liked a comment that was made, I think, by Gail. She said that they're trying to be progressive. The use and the needs of the people change all the time. And that resonates with me. I live out on the road there where people drive by every Saturday on their way to Gold Butte. And I've seen in